Hi, welcome to another episode of All Things Moon, or otherwise these days known as All Things Technology, with myself, Kelly Jones. Lunar wisdom for everyday life. And you'll be really pleased to know that I have finally spoken to my internet provider. And on the 8th of August, I have got full fibre, high speed internet coming this way. So I'm really praying that all these issues I've been having won't be such an issue anymore. Although I am realizing as I have been preparing for this podcast that Mercury is turning retrograde from the 5th of August. So we shall see how that plays out. I spoke to a very lovely lady at Utility Warehouse yesterday. I don't work for them, I'm not sponsored or anything. This lovely lady called Olivia, and it made the whole process of changing things much more pleasant and easy to do. Just a normal human being answering the phone who you could actually have a conversation with. So that was really good, and I thought I'd better do that now before Mercury turns retrograde. But as we know, this guy, the engineer, is coming on the 8th of August. So we'll see how that plays out. It could be entertaining. Hopefully, it will go smoothly. So, where are we on the astrological wheel at the moment? We are fully into Leo season. We have actually had some sunshine here in the UK as we entered Leo. He brought the sun with him. It's a little cloudy today, but it's still nice and warm. And I had a lovely day out on the river, rowing a rowing boat. On Wednesday, Tom had an unusual day off, so we decided to make the most of the nice weather, go somewhere lovely. So we went to Dedham, which in the world out there, anybody who knows the artist and painter Constable, John Constable, that is known as Constable Country. So a lot of his famous paintings are from that beautiful scenery around there. So that's what I did. And that tied in nicely with some of this Venus, who is still just about in Leo at the moment. It's tied in with some of that energy for me. Bit of romance. Quite funny though. I was sitting there in the rowing boat while Tom was rowing away, using all his energy, and I was sitting there like a Leo queen being rowed down the river. And we got halfway down there, and he asked me, would I mind rowing back? So, he is Aquarius. The age of the Aquarius is all things are equal. So I had halfway of my journey as Venus in Leo and the other half as the age of Aquarius. But there we go. Some funny anecdotal things that show you how the astrology can play out in a light-hearted way. So whilst I was sitting here waiting for the internet to come back on, all that kind of stuff, I got my good tarot cards out by Colette Baron Reid and pulled a card, and the one that came out will amuse you. It was the Fool card. Whilst I was asking, should I record this podcast today, because I normally try and do it on a Saturday, but it's actually a Friday. I have limited time today. We are doing a sound bath tonight, a fire and sun sound bath to help people chill down in this very fiery energy that we have this week, today particularly. The moon is in Aries today. So, with the Leo fire, the Aries fire, things could be a little fiery today. So we thought it would be a really good day to help people chill down, cool down, and create lots of water sounds to help balance out that fiery energy. So the Fool card, I shall read to you here. The Fool card in this particular deck represents the word enthusiasm. And I am still as enthusiastic about this podcast as I ever was, despite all the challenges, because however I can, I will try and share with you in my Essex girl, real time way of explaining things, trying to make sense of things for you in this crazy world we find ourselves in. So I will read this out. I know that a spiritual approach rarely appears logical and sometimes even seems impractical. However, when this card appears, the Fool card, I can take a risk and trust that with faith, anything is possible. The invisible realms will reveal each step along the way. I am meant to experience this regardless of where I travel. This is a time when I'm learning that I am a spiritual being having a human experience. Well, that couldn't be more right, could it? Because I am, doing my best to share my spiritual wisdom with you through this human way of doing things. I wish I could just send it out there on the airwaves from my mind to you and you would just receive it. And maybe there will be a way of doing that in the not too distant future, because we have got Pluto slowly coming, well, he's at 0 degrees of Aquarius, just about to move back into Capricorn. And once that's all over from November, as I have told you before, Pluto will be in Aquarius for the next 20 years. So he will be transforming all things to do with the mind, the airwaves, all things futuristic, genius, inventions that allow us to be more circular and less top down, so we can all join together as one. So we are in Leo season. First half is probably the best half, I would say, only really because of Mercury going retrograde. Mercury is at the moment moving into the sign of Virgo, and then as he goes retrograde, he'll be sort of traveling back into Leo and then going forwards into Virgo again over the 3-week period from the 5th of August. But Leo season is a good time to dust yourself off, and any of your talents and gifts that have been somewhat neglected. If you used to be in a band and play a musical instrument, maybe you should start that up again. If you sing, if you dance, whatever it might be. And for myself, in my own personal world, one of the things that I've always been very good at from a very young age was writing, particularly writing stories. I love to tell stories, as you know. And if you have been listening to my previous episodes, I told you about a meeting between Mercury and Uranus. I believe it was a sextile, which is a good aspect. And that happened around about, I think it was June 29th. I think it was exactly in a sextile. But the message from Yasmin Boland in her Moonology diary back then, if I can find it for you, was a Mercury-Uranus meeting also makes it a fantastic week to have a conversation that changes everything. And so what happened for me, I'm going to tell you this story now. I kind of kept it from you from a little while because I wanted to know whether it was really real or not. It seemed so kind of fantastical and out of the box and very Neptunian, kind of dreamlike, that I almost didn't want to talk about it until there was some kind of, tangible thing. But I went to my mum's caravan. I took my laptop there that day with the intention of doing various things. And along the way, my journey, I ended up going down wrong roads. I took a wrong turn. It took me ages to get where I was going. And eventually I got to my mum's caravan. And just to explain to you again, if you don't know me from listening regularly, my mum lives in Australia. She lives in Sydney, but she has a caravan nearby here. It's about 20 minutes away, and it's her home when she comes over to the UK. So I like to go to my mum's house every now and again for a bit of sanctuary. It's by the sea, and there's a little cafe there where I like to go and get something to eat. And I always feel relaxed when I'm there. You know, any stress and tension I might be holding just eases away. All my friends love to go there. They always say, oh, it's just such a relief to be at your mum's house. So I took my laptop there. When I got there, as I said, it taken me rather a long time. I almost decided not to go, and then I decided, spontaneously to go. And when I got there, my mum wanted to have a chat with me because she'd been to South Africa for 3 weeks on a safari with 17 women. And so I chatted to her about that while I was there, which brought me round to about 1:30 in the afternoon. And I had nothing to eat that day. So her battery ran out on her phone. So that meant our conversation ended and I took myself off to the cafe. And whilst in that cafe, an old gentleman came in. And I noticed him because he looked quite eccentric. He looked a little bit, noticeable, shall we say, by the way that he was dressed. He had a yellow polka dot cravat on, and he was wearing sort of pale lemon slacks, and he had a straw bow tie on, and he had this big mobile phone that he was speaking into, and he was talking about his next book being ready, and he was going to drop it off at the printers that day, and he thought it might be another bestseller. So obviously I was intrigued, and eventually the other people in the cafe disappeared until it was just myself and this old gentleman, who I now know is around about I think he's 87 years old. And he suddenly said to me, and then we had the place to ourselves, and we started talking across the room. And I asked him, did he have a caravan? Did he live nearby? And he said, well, I have a caravan just over there, but I also build houses for a living. He said, and I also write books. I've written 17 books so far, and I study the paranormal. And I was like, wow. And I said, well, that's why it was just supposed to be me and you left in here. So eventually I went over to his table, and I was standing by his table with the intention of leaving. And he asked me about myself, and he suddenly said to me, have you written a book yet, Kelly? And I started to come up with all my excuses of why I wanted to, and I nearly did, and my dad wanted me to, and my dad had given me money just before he got sick and sadly passed away. And I used that money to go on a Hay House writers workshop and buy myself a little keyboard for my iPad because I really needed a new laptop. And then, all my excuses anyway, I'm not going to elaborate on those, but they were excuses to sabotage something that I'm good at. So this is where I'm going with this story. So he said to me, right, sit down. I'll teach you how to write a book. And so he went on to tell me a few things, and we had a very interesting conversation. He's 87 years old, has had a very interesting life. And as it turns out, I went home afterwards and I did a little bit of Google research, because he said to me, you can Google me, you can see who I am, you can check me out, which I did. And it turns out he is a lord. So, and that is the truth. He really is a lord, because he was talking about the House of Commons and things like this. So I suddenly found myself with a writing mentor who not only writes about the paranormal, has written 17 books, builds houses and has a caravan near my mum's. I know it sounds fantastical, right? But he is also a lord. So I have this sort of slightly sort of what I would call that sort of Capricorn energy, who actually he turns out to be a Sagittarius, which is why we got on so well, because I'm a Sagittarius rising. We obviously recognized that in each other. You know, I noticed him, he stood out from the crowd. He was very philosophical and into higher learning and all things Sagittarius. So this week, so that was the conversation that changed everything, because he told me, Kelly, you need to stop wasting your life. You have all this wisdom to share, and it's selfish to keep it to yourself. You need to write a book. So I did receive an email from him after that. I gave him my email address, and he did email me, and this email came through from the Lord. I'm not going to tell you what his full name is, but then this started to become real. So obviously what it started to do is bring up all these sort of sabotage things in me that would prevent me from writing a book. And he wrote in that email that I should dedicate this book to my dad. My dad is now in his reincarnation, so my dad won't remember the past and won't be able to help me now. So God put us here for a reason, and God talks to us not directly but through other people. And he gave us this one life to do with what we want to do with it. So who do you want to be, Kelly? So I had a meeting with him this week, 2 hours, amazing conversations. I have a whole list of instructions now. So this is my opportunity to dust off one of my talents and bring it back out into the world, a time to shine. So watch this space and watch this journey going forwards of my becoming an author story finally. So one of the questions here that really depicts this Leo season is, does your name belong in lights? And when I was younger, I wanted my name in lights. You know, I grew up in the theatre, went to theatre school. I spent my whole first of my life on stage, and I dreamt of having my name in lights. And this little, you know, our journeys, and when we know our birth charts and we know how our stories are, not knowing how a story is going to play out, but we can see the likelihood of how a story will play out. How we go about that is down to us and the choices that we make and the decisions that we do with that information. But I can see now how I've come round to this point, 54 years old, and I've had my own way of shining in the world. And there's been various times when the little saboteur has crept in and kind of got me 3/4 of the way, but not all of the way. And as I told you in the last episode, I climbed all the way to King Arthur's statue at Tintagel Castle. And I felt like that was quite significant for me to not make it 3/4 of the way and end up sabotaging my talents again. So I share this with you because I hope that this helps somebody out here who ends up doing similar things. And, you know, contact me if you want to have a look at your own birth chart and we can see what's going on for you. And yeah, it's a really good time to kind of fall head over heels in love with yourself. Use this Leo energy to get the love back for yourself. It's a romantic time for partnerships, but also for the relationship with yourself. But the main thing that has happened today is that Chiron, the wounded healer, the teacher, in myth, he couldn't heal his wounds never healed. So he kind of represents those wounds that we never really heal fully, and helping us to do that. So looking back in our lives, we can see where things maybe have come up and we've done something about it. And then a little bit later on, it comes up to show you that maybe there's still some of that wound lingering around. So I really feel that this story that I'm sharing with you today is that aspect coming up to show me, how can I heal this wound? And Chiron is currently traveling through Aries. He has been traveling through Aries since 2018. And interestingly, 2018 is when I sold my business. That point where I was at 3/4 of the way. And all of a sudden, there was this sudden change. There were lots of other aspects to lead towards that. But it's interesting that Chiron is in Aries in my birth chart, and it would be in your birth chart. If you were born between 1968 and 1977, you would have Chiron in Aries in your birth chart somewhere. The degrees and the house would be different, a different area of life, but that is where it is for myself. So Chiron entered Aries again, so it hasn't been there since 1977, and it entered in 2018. And that was the start of me starting to heal some wounds around my identity. Chiron in Aries leads us to be in search of our collective identity. And even if you weren't born during those times, doesn't matter when you were born, the fact that Chiron is in Aries now would collectively show us that we are going to be looking at any wounds to do with identity. And if we look out in the world, there really is that. If we observe, we can see that identity has become a thing. Whether it be that I see lots of women out there and lots of men out there all trying to look the same because they're not quite sure who they really are. And for myself, when I sold my business in 2018, I realized that what I was doing is I had sold my identity to someone else, and I had become nothing and no one again. And so that was the start of my journey into discovering who I really am without these things to lean on, just as me being me at home, and rediscovering all the things that I love to do, the reason I'm here, what it is I'm here to share. So Chiron is currently retrograde. So when a planet is retrograde, it's kind of at its closest point to the Earth in its orbit. So as a result of that, it exerts a stronger influence on us compared to when it's going direct. It's currently at 23 degrees. So when it's been at other degrees, we might not have noticed it so much. But because it's going to be at 23 degrees a lot longer, we're going to notice its effects more. So this is a really good opportunity for us to look at any wounds about self-identity, that Aries energy. The Fool card represents Aries in the tarot. It's the leap of faith, the pioneer, the one that goes first, takes the leap without looking and just sees what happens. So, retrograde time is a time to go back and revisit our past experiences. So this is a chance for us to revisit any wounds around our identity, and not to suffer from them, but to ask ourselves, what does it mean and how can I do this better? How can I help myself to do what I'm doing in a better way around this area of my life? what are the underlying emotions? What are the difficulties I've faced around this subject of self and identity? So, try not to avoid doing this work. You've got this opportunity. When it comes up, it feels difficult. And I've got to say, yesterday, I had this feeling of feeling angry. And I didn't feel, yesterday, I just felt as though Tom wasn't interested in what I had to say. But rather than be too reactive about that, I could feel anger coming up in me. And I thought, oh gosh, this is that Chiron in Aries, fiery energy around my wounds. No one's interested in me. That sense of worthlessness can come up right now. But because I know about this, I could sit with it, be quiet with it, and not escalate it into something that would be, out of control maybe, to sit and breathe through it. And, we've got the gong bath tonight, so hopefully I will be receiving some of that too. The Aries 23 degrees, there's something called a Sabian symbol. So there's a symbol that represents every single 360 degrees of the zodiac. And the one that represents this 23 degrees of Aries, where Chiron is sitting, is a woman in pastel colours carrying a heavy and valuable but veiled load. And that suggests a sense of reticence. And he who shouts loudest does not necessarily receive the most attention, because Aries can shout quite loud, me, 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 me. But if we are carrying this heavy load, this burden, kind of covering ourselves up in unnoticeable colours, maybe this is where we need to look at where our voices can be heard, where we can shine brighter in this Leo season. Chiron in Aries for me is in the 5th house, and that shows a wound to the sense of self-worth, how you express yourself and your creativity. So you can see how by me dog-determinedly doing this podcast, no matter what the challenges are that come up, which I'm sure I manifest these challenges for myself, because there's that reticence to show myself, to express myself, even though deep down that's what I'm here to do. So the healing around this means recognizing and developing creative talents and letting your true self shine. So if you want to know a little bit more about where this might be showing up for you, please do contact me. I'm going to leave that there for now. And just to finally say that this is my 20th episode of All Things Moon, Lunar Wisdom for Everyday Life. So I am going to be offering, watch out for and ask me if you want it, a 20% discount code on a Moonology reading with myself, or my Be Your Own Alchemist package, which allows you to experience various different things. So in the Be Your Own Alchemist package, you'll get a Moonology reading, a mini birth chart reading. You can attend 2 online live moon ceremonies with myself, and also a little oracle card reading for you as well. So amazing little packages there for you. So that will be a 20% off code, and the 20% off code is Leo20. That's all in capital letters, Leo20. So if you are listening to this, you go to my website, check out my details that are attached to this, and you will get a 20% discount off of either of those services. So moon blessings to you all. Shine bright in this Leo season, and I will look forward to speaking to you next week.